It's the phrase that pays. Yes. Yes, y'all. Guess what, y'all? It's the magic hour. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock EST Wednesday. That must mean it's time for Pitch Me. It must be dreaming time. Welcome back to Pencil to Pencil, your live creative live cast brought to you by 3 expert cartoonists. Count them 1, 2, 3. That's right. Part of being a cartoonist is we have to add once in a while too. So let's do some introductions. I'm your first host. My name is JAMAR Nicholas. I wear many hats. I am on the board of the National Cartoonist Society and also the Philadelphia chapter chair. Go Birds. On top of all that, I'm also a cartoonist. Did I tell you that? Leon Worst Friends Forever is my newest book in my series at Scholastic underneath the graphics imprint. I think you need to cop it if you haven't copped it by now. I would be remiss if I did not introduce my cohort, co-conspirator, and co-compatriot. He is in these webcomics.
Your Coco.
He's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. In these webcomic streets, he is known as the Bill Bixby of webcomics. Walking up that lonely internet superhighway with a melodic tinkle at his back. You know him. Don't get him angry.
Don't tinkle up his back.
You wouldn't like him if he's angry. He is Stone Cold Steve Conley. What's up, Steve Conley?
I don't think our audience needs to be told who Bill Bixby is. I think.
Well, we're going to have to go back a little bit.
Of Eddie's father, completists in our crowd.
You went way back. All right.
Hello, my name is Steve Conley. I write and draw your possibly 13th favorite webcomic.
It's moving up.
Yeah. Well, it peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
A new episode was just dropped on Webtoons, Tapas, Go Comics. I'm missing one. My own website and Patreon.
Patreon, yes.
5 places. And it'll be on social media tomorrow. And I also make TTRPG stuff. So if you play the Dungeons and the Dragons, you can visit steveconley.com and check out the fancy things I've made there. And this weekend, I will be at SC Comic-Con in Greenville, South Carolina. With, I believe, America's Tom Zoller. So you can catch us there. And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the scourge of the Yancey Street Gang. He drew your childhood, Mr. Mike Manley.
Hello, everyone. Everyone.
Hello.
I got that several times this past weekend because both Jamar and I did the Moore Comic Expo in Philadelphia that took place at Moore College of Art and Design, and I took along a selection of my work over the decades, and it's always kind of a kick to see. I took like some storyboards from Kim Possible, and then I took some layout drawings I did for Clone Wars. And when people see, they look at the comics, but when they see something like that, like from cartoons that they watched on TV, that kind of blows their mind. Like, this is the thing this is actually from the cartoon, and most people, even people who are fans, probably have never really seen an actual storyboard, an actual board from a show or any actual production art from a show. So that was enjoyable to see people's reactions to stuff like that, because that kind of stays with people all their lives. When they watch a cartoon, we're even talking about like people that are fans of the Turtles, let's say, but you have very separate. You've got the original black and white comic fans, then you have like the first cartoon fans, then you have the first movie fans, then you have the second iteration of the cartoon fans, and then like the next movie fans, and then like the third or fourth animation. So it's interesting, especially at a show like that, because you had a mixture of looky-loos and people are just curious, gonna
tire kickers.
Right, yeah, they come in, but when they see something like that they know,
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead, Mike.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Our good friend Robert Alvarez. Go back and watch Robert's interview with us last year. A good storyboard is always nice to see. You are correct. And I was stationed next to Mike, and this is interesting because I was kind of eavesdropping in some places. Mike was holding court the whole afternoon. I had a line of people just queuing up to ask him questions, and I hope put some money in your pocket, Mike. I hope a little bit.
No, there was no money, and I kind of figured that at an event like that,
Yeah, at the college campus, it's all about the good vibes, right? So, but what I was going to say is, I saw somebody who was looking down. I think you had some phantom pages, and I think you had like maybe 2 to a page, like 2 to a board,
right?
And the person was like, well, wait. So this is the comic? Like, well, is it this big? Like, we're as cartoonists, we're so used to seeing like original artwork that
Right.
You kind of forget that people still probably think you draw it like the size of a postage stamp.
Right. Well, like I said, most people have never, if you're not a professional, or maybe you haven't even been to a comic convention, you have no idea of, like, it's a drawing, but you have no idea. Even when I post stuff on Instagram, usually people go like, well, how long? I had that one of the typical, like, how long did it take you to do it? How big, how big is the original? Because people really don't know. It's funny, I mean, even though comics has been around for a really long time, it's still very popular. People just really don't have like a common experience. They've been to a museum and they've seen a painting. They've seen a watercolor, they've seen an oil painting, they've seen a sculpture, but very few people have probably still actually seen an original piece of comic art.
I think, but thinking back, I remember when I first saw a original page of comic art, and that it was larger than the comic, and that did kind of blow my mind. That was a thing where I thought, oh, and once they said, oh, it makes the mistake smaller, I'm like, oh, that's great. I can do this for a living. If hiding mistakes is built into the system, I think, oh yeah, I could do this.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I remember that too. I think it was a convention in Farmington, Michigan. I think it was my first comic convention. And I think, I saw some original art for the first time. And that was like, you had found the grail or something, to actually see original art with like how big it was, like you said. And, oh, here's the lettering, and there's all these like marks on it. You would think it would be this pristine thing, but there's like corners torn off, and like some editor's note where he like drew right on the artwork with a long line and like non-photo blue to like make some correction or whatever. So
and in whiteout on a page, like, oh, okay, yeah, they're mortals like us.
I remember that. And I think it was a Fantastic Four page. I remember. I think it was actually Buscema and Sinnott. And and Sinnott's lines are like, they're perfect. He's like, it looks like a human being, like Terry Austin. When you see something that's inked by Terry, it didn't look like a human being touched it. It looks like you ran it out of a Xerox machine, right? Because he was one of those guys who would actually, after he erased the page, if the ink got a little lighter in certain areas, he would actually go back over it and like fill the black. So it was like gling, like, Japanese effects, little perfect little magical stars, Some guys were like that, and then other people, their original, like you've been looking at an original by Zafino. It looks he literally attacked it with a razor. A lot of his technique is actually scraping off the ink with a razor blade.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's not how I grew up with a razor in West Philly, but I guess we all roads converge to comics, right?
And it's
Yeah,
murder on
so-
screen protectors. I can tell you.
Yeah, so it was fun having discussion with the comics business is a hard business, and it's always dying. It is literally always, there's some part of it that's like, oh, that just rotted and fell off, right? But there's always this fresh wave of young people who want to do comics. So I don't think parts of the industry may atrophy and die or transform, but there was a room full of young, talented people, and they all want to do comics.
Yeah, that's real, and I also think that's one of the good parts about kind of getting out and getting out into the open and kind of seeing what's going on. I'm really happy to report that, especially in Philadelphia, the cartooning scene is really, really bright right now.
We are thick with cartoonists in Philadelphia.
Lousy. We're lousy.
Lousy with cartoonists.
I know there's a influx of young cartoonists who have moved into the city. There's some name people, I won't put them out on blast right now, who moved to the city. And there's
Come on, give me their address.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doxing anybody on Pencil to Pencil.
We're going to dox them right now.
And also, there's several comic book stores here, even though we lost Fat Jack's. We also gained Multiverse over the last 2 years in Chestnut Hill. And Partner and Sons, which is right off of South Street, which is kind of filling in that gap that Locust Moon left when they went out of business. So, they're out there. And as elder statesmen, we should make sure that we make ourselves available.
Well, the other thing that's interesting is that a lot of them are fans of comics, but they don't buy comics. They make comics, they read comics, but it's all through the phone or the iPad. They're not, because I would ask them, well, what do you buy? What do you read? And they're like, well, I read stuff online, because this generation of kids who are in college right now, they are the webtoon generation. So they started out just seeing stuff. They didn't start out reading comic books like we did. They didn't even start out reading manga that way. They started out actually reading webtoons.
Yeah, the web comic, and that's Steve's bread and butter is the web, right? So I'm sure you've seen your audience kind of grow up, maybe even bring in younger people.
Yeah, it's talking about conventions. It's it's also easy too, as an easy out. Like when you see these books in my expensive hardcovers on the table, and the parents come up there, and you can just tell that the kids already spent all the money they're going to spend for the day, or and it was at the concession stand, and their pockets are empty, and well, you can read it for free online. Always a sigh of relief for the parent that they can read the comics online. But so many people, when I go to a convention, they'll say, oh yeah, I read this on webtoons. They're not going to buy a book. They don't have to. They can read it all for free. But that's how we grew up with our comic strips. The thought of buying a Doonesbury collection probably didn't occur to a lot of people, or a Calvin and Hobbes collection, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But most people just read it for free.
I would see collections. I guess they weren't really. They were sort of like books on cartooning that you would get at the library.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I read comic books, and some newspaper stuff, but mostly comic books. But it's very interesting to me to see, what the access point is for someone who is 20, right? So when I haven't taught since the beginning of the pandemic, so that's 5 years ago now. So there's a whole new generation of people who came in and started reading during the pandemic. Those kids are now in college, and how they learned and how they were exposed to comics was different than the people 5 years before the pandemic.
Right.
And so their relationship to the medium, styles, what your access point was, your whole idea of what the medium is kind of different than 10 years ago, you know? So I think that's really interesting. And that's something that I think a lot of people from our generation don't really pay attention to. They don't really see that because they don't really talk to the young up and coming, you know, cartoonists who might have a very different, also a lot more, I mean, more as a school for women, but there's a ton more female cartoonists, probably more than there have ever been in the history of the medium, who are doing comics and want to do comics.
Yeah, I think we're in good hands. So speaking of being in good hands, all hands on deck. We've got a great show for you tonight, and I'm glad that we have a big packed room. We have a lively discussion. We have a returning guest, guys. Chuck Dillon, man, hold on a second. I messed you up, Chuck. Give me a second. Let me clear the screen. Chuck Dillon is here, or as I affectionately call him, Duck Chillin, is in the green room. Chuck is one of my favorite cartoonists, and I'll find some words. Let me clear the screen. We talk about cartooning and a lot of people may tune in and feel like when we talk about cartoon, we're talking about Marvel comic books. That's not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about the giant diaspora of cartooning, strips, you know, straight illustration, New Yorker stuff, manga, all of it. And what I love about Chuck is that Chuck has created several lanes for himself, and he's made so talented. We had him on before. I love his highlights for children's stuff. He's got a board game that I want to talk about. He's got new books out that we need to talk about. So we've talked too much. Guys, get ready for rendering. Welcome to Pencil to Pencil, Chuck Dillon. Ping!
Hi, everybody.
Hey, are you still there? Hey, buddy.
I'm still here.
Yo,
yes.
Hello. Chuck, I'm sorry. I kind of murdered your intro.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm used to murder.
Sorry. Speaking of razor blade. So, like, I just want to start off. Like, you've been on the show before, and we always have great chats in person and then online. And one of the things that a lot of people may know about you is that, oh, Chuck, you're the fill in the blank guy, right? So I'm sure things follow you, like, oh, you're the highlights for children, like a picture search guy, right?
Yeah.
Do any of those things kind of stick with you that you don't like? You know what I'm saying? Or do you not like being pigeonholed? Does it matter to you anyway?
I don't mind, because I feel like that's kind of the avenue that people discover me. So I shouldn't, shun it away. The only thing is that with the hidden pictures, sometimes people just think it's going to be hidden picture, and I kind of have to explain to them, like, are you guys there?
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I thought I got cut out. Yeah, sometimes I have to explain to them, like, hey, this isn't a hidden picture, and that's an additional cost, if you're going to hire me to do an illustration. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, I've always, been the type of cartoonist that as long as the project's fun and it pays pretty well, I'm willing to do it. So I've tried to explore all different avenues. And you guys were talking about New Yorker cartoons. Like, I think that's my next step. I have a lot of comics that I've written for decades, and because I was so busy with highlights, I just never had any place to put them, and now I'm like, I think it's time, that I can kind of branch out and try those. So I'm always willing to try different things. Yeah.
So maybe we can start at the beginning, because for people who didn't watch the first episode, which was a couple of years ago already.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Can you maybe quickly kind of talk about your origin story, how you got into cartooning and some of your early gigs?
Yeah, I grew up in Philadelphia, but we always managed to have the Philadelphia Daily News, the Inquirer, and I loved reading the comics from there. Charlie Brown, Calvin Hobbes, even Family Circle, all of those comic strips.
Another Philadelphian.
Yeah, another Philadelphia, and then I remember things really changed when my brother brought home Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #7. This was way before. This was probably in the 1984, 83.
Mm.
And I never seen anything like that. I'd seen comics. I think I had some Transformers and some G.I. Joe comics, but I wasn't like a kid that went to a comic book store. We just didn't have one around. I saw them maybe in bookstores. And he brought that home, and that kind of just changed everything, because I just realized, like, oh, comics don't have to be superheroes. You know, they could be this kind of gritty, dark thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really appealed to me. So I started collecting those. I connected with a couple friends. I had a friend that would buy like $30 worth of comics every month, you know, and I was spending maybe $5. I was lucky, but I loved the Ninja Turtles, and then I got into Usagi Yojimbo, which I still love. Still love Stan Sakai's work. And then I went to art school in a little Catholic high school called Father Judge, and then I wasn't very good academically, so I went to the Hushin School of Art, which is now closed. And it was a great school for me because it was 4 years of strict art, no academics. I did really well there. And then I just kept plugging away. And while I was at Hushin, I just randomly started this comic that I would do about being an artist, being a cartoonist in an art school, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Philadelphia Daily News came out with a teenage section called Fresh Ink. And I don't think they were asking anybody for submissions, but I just sent a couple of those comics in and said, hey, I can do a comic for Fresh Ink. I'm still a teenager. I was, I think, early 19, you know. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So they published one that they'd already done. And then they asked me to develop a strip, which was basically, it was 3 panels or 3 columns. So it was bigger than a Sunday, but they gave me, I had to do one a week. And the school was nice enough that they gave me a day off, because I think we had like a production class, paste ups and stuff. That's how far how long ago it was. And they were basically like, you're kind of doing this with the comic because you have to make sure it's all clean and ready to go. So I just started doing that. And I did the best I could. I liked it when I first started because it was like it's typical comic strip. It had characters, but the characters, kind of like the Muppets, where we changed jobs, whatever we needed to suit for that strip, because the Fresh Ink had a certain theme to it every week, and so I would kind of try and make a comic around that theme. And then about the first year after that, I thought it was going pretty well. They wanted me to make it like a soap opera, and I was just a fish out of water. It was awful. Like, I hated it.
You did it. You did turn it into it? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did. But I tried to incorporate some more humor, and then they wanted it to be more serious. And I just I hated soap operas. I think 90210 was really popular at that time. And I'm like, this is garbage, So I just did the best I could, and I tried to get that syndicated. And I think I did that for 5 years. And I finally, I kept getting letters from all the syndicates saying this is really good. It's in the top 10, but yeah, there's, this and that. And I just I got to move out of my mother's basement. I can't be sitting here doing this, because you're not getting paid to develop it,
Right.
And all the feedback you're getting is kind of vague. So, yeah, I started teaching at Hushin after I think I was out for 5 years. I started teaching there, and then Highlights showed up, because Highlights is right in the Poconos of Pennsylvania, which is not too far from Philadelphia, only about 2 hours. And so they would come and visit the area art schools, and they came, and I just was talking to one of the people at lunch, and a couple of the instructors that I taught with at Hushin worked on stuff for Highlights. And then they said basically, you'd be great for hidden pictures. So I started doing hidden pictures. And I think I did those very steadily for 20 years. So I did over 150 of those.
Wow.
Yeah, I think this year would be 30 years since I worked for Highlights, or started working for Highlights. But I haven't worked with them in 3 years. I don't know what happened. It's this a lot of times in this business that happens, where no one complains about anything you do. You didn't do anything. They just stop calling, whether it's a new art director or they found someone else, all of a sudden that door just kind of closed. So, yeah.
Wow. So that was a big client. And while you were doing highlights, you were always kind of like spokes in the wheel doing other little things.
Yeah, I was doing other stuff. Yep. Yeah, I was doing I did Vimeo build illustrations too, which are like the Where's Waldo. So on the back cover of highlights, they'll have like what's wrong. So I did those, and my illustrations were getting busier and busier, which I really enjoyed doing those. They took a while. I maybe did 1 or 2 a month at the most. They were just super complex. We're talking, some of them had over 100 characters in them. And I really loved doing those. But then, it came to the time where highlights just stopped asking me to do those. And it also, it started really taking a toll on my arms. I just had carpal tunnel surgery on my right arm or on my right hand. So this over this past month, because I had that done in December, I'm just basically starting to draw again and learning how to draw. And I stupidly started doing another, Where's Waldo hidden picture. But I'm taking my time.
So do you have to adjust how you're drawing because of the surgery?
Yeah, well, it took a while to, they said it would take about 3 months to be fully back 100%. But I've had to take a lot of precautions, because I'm really short. I'm only 5'3", so a standard desk is a little too high for me. So there's all these things, I have things for my feet to help my back and my legs. Mm-hmm. And then I just have to be really careful. I just got this that I still use a Wacom tablet, but I bought this just so it's lifted up a little bit. And all these things have helped, but I still have to do a lot of stretches, and I still haven't had the left hand done. And that one actually they find is worse than the right, which is crazy to me because I'm right-handed. But they said it's because of the command keys I've been doing. Yeah. My hand just kind of sits there and my fingers kind of hover, and it's causing all this damage. So if any of you are young cartoonists, please take care of yourself, stretch out. There's a lot of books on it.
I ended up having to get one of those cortisol shots in the wrist.
Oh, did you?
All those actions on the keyboard of holding down the command key, contorting yourself to hit Command P or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm always hitting Command Z and Command S and all that stuff.
Yeah, the repetitive keystroke.
Yes, exactly. So these three.
Murder.
Yeah.
And then I have, not to get too much into it, but I have a bunch of crushed vertebrae too.
This is the good stuff. Yeah, right.
All the cartooning all the years like this, they did a CAT scan. They're like, one of your spinal, or what do you call it?
Your discs.
Discs. Yeah, it has a talon growing on it that's crushing the tube.
Wow.
So I gotta stretch my neck, and I'm only 52. I just didn't think it would hit me this hard. But I've talked to other cartoonists like Jim Lawson, who does, he draws 18 hours a day, probably, that guy. And he's like, no, I have no problems. What the hell, dude? Yeah. So it's just your body, got this.
It's interesting because I think that the older generation didn't work digital. And so my theory is because when you work on paper, you're moving your whole body. You're moving your arms.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And now everybody is drawing in an area about this big.
Exactly.
No matter how big your Wacom tablet is, you're still making this little thing. And I was just talking to was it June Brigman? She was asking me about that. And I realized that I have maybe a slightly different setup because my board is flat. So where you have your drawing table and you have those little knobs that.
Yeah.
So my drawing board rests on the knob and then it's flat on my lap. So when I work, there's absolutely no stress on my arm. None.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
Whenever if I elevate it and I'm drawing, because I have a lap board, right? So if I elevate it and I'm working on a piece of paper, my whole arm's moving.
Yes, exactly.
It's not the little,
You guys, you see this art table back here? I can draw on there for hours. I have a little bit of numbness. I have to take a break, maybe once every hour. But if I'm on that Wacom tablet before the surgery, I had to stop every 15 minutes. And I could work through the paint, and my arm would just go numb. And I would just I can't even hold the pencil, it was really bad. But yeah, I agree with that because you're leaning too when you're on your table. You're putting a lot of weight on your arm, your elbow, and you're moving around. But so
it's I think Al Williamson, who used to live in Honesdale, where highlights is.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah. He started getting tennis elbow.
Huh.
Because when he's inking, and something about like the height of his board and his table, dipping it and whatever. And so the doctor, he went and said he had to change the height of where his tools were.
Okay. Yeah.
And that seemed
just that little bit.
Yeah.
But you think about how many times he probably did that. It's that repetition. It doesn't seem like that much. I mean, when I was a kid, I would have never thought in a million years that's something like, I think of construction guys that are like really working hard, digging ditches and, hammering. Like, of course they're going to have problems, but just someone sitting and drawing in a sketchbook or something, it's going to cause this much damage.
That's interesting because I just saw some article that I didn't read, but I saw it about how sitting too long like shaves years off your life. But we didn't talk about what you're doing in the chair. You know what I mean? That makes it sound like you're just kind of
watching TV or something.
But actually like your posture in the motion, it all kind of adds up.
Cartooning kills you. If you're sitting, that kills you. But if you're cartoon, oh man, that's really
that's a good idea.
Our good buddy Rick Garcia, Rick without the K, says wearing small pillows on the elbows made wonders for his brain.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yikes.
That's a great idea. Yeah, and I have a mouse here too that has just a little like wrist.
Oh yeah, I have.
That really helps. I've used that for years. But.
It's funny. I didn't know this is how the episode was going to go, but it's pretty funny.
We're going to put on a line.
You guys drink prune juice yet?
Yeah, let's talk about fiber supplements.
Your castor oil and your prune juice, and your Metamucil, all that's very, very important. A line of elbow pillows.
Well, Chuck, I want to show some of your art, and one thing that I've always loved of yours, and kind of when we connected a couple of years back, was you were putting out those little books of your students.
Which art student are you?
Which art student are you? And you do a lot.
Yeah, because I taught at Husson for 13 years. Yeah, and I just was kind of frustrated because art students can be very lazy. So it's just kind of me stereotyping specific types. So I did like 25 different student types, and it went viral in 2009. And so I made a little book about it, just describing each kind of pain in the ass student.
I took that book to my art office when I worked at the college, and it kind of disappeared a couple of times and came back. But it was well worn by the time I finished. But one thing that I love about you, like you have I love your observational sketches and your observational cartooning. Like how often do you do this? Do you do this when you're just out in public? Do you make certain trips to just go sit somewhere and draw people?
Yeah, I don't sit. Now that I have a family, I don't get to sit too much. But if we go on vacation, a lot of times I actually use the Notes app on iPhone, and I'll kind of write like, I try not to take pictures of people because I feel like that's violating their privacy. But take little notes like, "Hey, lady," that was looking at her own boobs or something. You know what I mean? And then so I saw that guy in the parking lot. And then every once in a while, I will just sit and watch people. Like if I'm at an airport or, we're going on a cruise soon. Cruise is a great place to go because you get to see old men in Speedos, which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that's your jam, right? Yeah.
But so it's really fun, And then these I just kind of to get away from the digital art because I still do. My illustrations are still 50-50 digital and hand drawn. I still draw everything by hand as much as I can. So doing the sketchbook and the coloring this way with some Copic markers or Copic markers, just I don't know, just help me just do something a little different. Yeah. Yeah, this guy. Yeah, he was behind me in line at Walmart, and I was like, "Oh God,
What a
gotta
face.
Holy cupcakes. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've gotten so much now that like my son and my wife will be like, "You got to draw that guy." You know what I mean? If they see someone like, "Dad, did you see that guy?" Yeah, I saw that guy.
And Chuck, with your recall, like how much of it is cartooning license? Like I know this guy had the fish from Barney Miller face,
Right.
Abe Vigoda face. But
Yeah, I always go. Yeah, I always go with like, how did he make me feel? You know what I mean? And how just the kind of first impression. I try not to look too much, just kind of get that first impression. So I find a couple times I have taken photos, but I feel like it kind of disrupts, things. Yeah, that guy was amazing. I see a lot of people. I do all the grocery shopping because my wife is a fast talking career gal, and so I see the craziest people at the grocery store, and that's a lot of fun too. So I just take little notes. I
love his denim tuxedo. That's great.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of sketchbooks like this. This is my 101st sketchbook I've been keeping since.
Wow.
Yeah, since 90. I started numbering them like in the early 90s.
Wow. And I love the color work too.
Oh, thank you.
So this stuff, are you coloring this in the sketchbook, or are you doing these like loose?
Yeah, I'm coloring it in the sketchbook on the page. And then if I mess up, which I don't try not to too much, but I'll, sometimes I'll redraw it. But I try to keep it in the sketchbook because I like having them kind of all together. Yeah, that guy. Oh my God, that guy.
That's so good.
It's funny. Some people, a couple times I've been in my little town. I live in this little tiny town in Massachusetts that are the only real business is a Dunkin' Donuts / general store or gas station. And I happened to see these two people, this couple pull in on like a little tiny mini bike. You guys remember mini bikes?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he left it where people were trying to get gas, and then they started going over to the bottles and cans and like collecting all the bottles and cans. And I just thought it was really strange. So I drew it, I think 2 days later, and then I posted it on my Facebook page. But I also sometimes will share photos to like the town's page, just like because people will be like, oh, I saw that guy, whatever. And someone was like, that's my daughter, and I haven't seen her in 2 years. And thanks to your sketch, we know she's in town. And I was like,
wow.
Oh my God. I was like, wow. Whoa. So I apologized, took it down.
Wow.
And they're like, no, we're not insulted. We do think it's weird behavior, but like they're drug addicts and they were basically trying to get money.
Next thing Chris Hansen's going to be like, thank you, Chuck. We've been tracking this man for a year.
Yes.
But I love that your cartoon image captured enough of her for her to be recognized.
Yeah, it was wild. Yeah. I don't think that was even in color. It was just like a kind of a quick, loose sketch.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, at least the guy didn't come to your house and like,
right.
Dylan, get out here.
Right.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
Yeah, that was last year 2 years ago at the NCS National Cartoonist Society event. We were on the L on the way back, and I'm like, whoa, oh my God. Like that's part of me because I live in the middle of nowhere now in Massachusetts, but like I miss being on the L, being on the train and just seeing all the craziness. It was just so fun.
I think that's really it's really important. I think that people sort of forget that, in order to pull stuff out of your head, you have to put stuff in your head.
Yeah.
So, drawing, I know the animation studios in California would do that, would go out during lunch, and then they would have like little contests who could like draw the most.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Weird.
Yeah, like at Costco, right? Yeah. They would meet at Costco.
Right. And when I taught drawing for animation, even storyboarding, I would take my classes out to, well, when I was in Delaware, I would take them to the mall. And when I was teaching at UArts, we would go over to Rittenhouse Square.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's, draw people. And, sometimes you see a person for like 3 seconds.
Right.
Right. So it's like you sort of like you train your mind to observe what's most important. You might only get a glimpse of that person.
It's like an impression that you get from them that you're seeing. It's funny. It's funny you bring up Rittenhouse Square. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Jamar, but when Hush and School of Art asked me to teach, one of the first things they asked me to teach was figure construction, which is not with nude model, but you basically teach like the proportions of the body and stuff, which I was always pretty good at. And so I went to Philadelphia with a friend of mine just to pick up like some of the curriculum that they had used in the past and then the book. And my friend and I walked to Rittenhouse Square and we sat down and I looked to the left of me and there's this old man just taking all his clothes off. I was like, what are the chances of this? The figure construction teacher.
So lucky.
You know what I mean? Like,
you're so lucky.
Clearly, I must be doing something right.
Oh, look at the latissimus dorsi on that guy. Wow.
It's hilarious.
That's crazy. Well, I also just wanted to say, I didn't think that this would be on my cartooning bingo card, but nice coffin.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of, there's a play, I think it's still going on in New York City. It's called Sleep No More. Mm-hmm. And it's basically 3 stories of a building.
Yeah.
And you get to just wander around and the actors are kind of doing their own thing and you're given this mask. So you're kind of a blank slate. And my wife loved it. I thought it was the most boring thing, weird thing I've ever been to. And so I found there was like a little funeral parlor and there was an old timey casket like that. And so I just climbed in it and I took like a nap for like 30 minutes. It's like, when am I ever going to be able to get to do this? So I'm just going to take a nap. And so that's what this illustration.
You're too much, man. You're too much. It's wild.
Yeah, and Panera too. I go to Panera a lot. I see a lot of funny people, a lot of old people at Panera. This guy had 2 pairs of glasses on. So that was amazing.
He's got his bifocals and his cheaters.
Yeah, when I would take the students to the Christiana Mall, Delaware, we would go in the morning, and there would be groups of retirees, old people coming in.
Yeah.
And they would go to McDonald's. There was like a McDonald's, and then they would do their laps. So you would see
the walkers,
and they would do their laps. And I had never seen that before, but it was really good for the animators.
Yeah,
because you could, if you observed each person, how they were built, how they walked. Some people lean, some people take little teeny strides, some people walk very, very strident, very, very, very fit. And I would say, with cartooning, it's really easy just to draw sort of like always the same ears. Everybody always stands the same way. You just draw sort of like generic stuff. But what you're doing is you can see in your drawings is you're getting something that's unique. So if you draw 4 old people, they don't all look the same. They don't all
exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. And skin tones too. I think we, as illustrators, you tend to make like all Black people have the same color brown. You know what I mean? Or all Latinos have the same color this or white. You know what I mean? And there's so many different shades. Of it's amazing. When you
I don't have diagonal stripes. So
That's right.
You're not duotone.
Yeah, I don't have a 20% zipatone going through.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm gonna like queue up some more Chuck stuff. So you guys talk.
Okay. Yep.
So when you were studying cartooning or planning to study cartooning, or you're in an art school doing cartooning, was the art school receptive to cartoonists?
They were, but what's nice about Hushin was they're fine arts based. So like, no matter if you're a designer or illustrator, you still had to take like life drawing every year. You still had to take kind of those foundation courses. And I just love cartooning, and I think they saw that. So the president was very encouraging. I think he got me a subscription to Hogan's Alley. I don't know if you guys know Hogan's Alley.
That's great.
The comic. Yeah, which I had never heard of, so he was very supportive. And then when I started my comic strip, I wish I knew the name of the man, but he connected me with a local cartoonist, and he kind of, just gave me some pointers when I was starting out, just
JAMAR Nicholas.
certain things.
JAMAR Nicholas. It wasn't good. JAMAR Nicholas.
Local cartoonist,
Yes.
JAMAR Nicholas.
Yes. But so yeah, I just kind of fumbled my way through it. I just kind of learned a lot of the things on my own and picked up a lot of stuff. But I had a good foundation of perspective and all those things that you need to just learn how to to draw well, basically.
It's great that the school was supportive. Did you, at that point, when you thought about being a cartoonist, did you have a plan? Did you have a?
I really didn't. I am not a very smart person, so I just kind of. Sometimes I feel like Forrest Gump, where like I just find myself in these situations, and I'm like, "Cool, this is great." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I probably should be a little bit more ambitious, but I kind of just go with the flow. But as I got older, I start kind of like the New Yorker cartoons. That I would love to, that's something I'm definitely going to have to pursue. And sometimes I just, send a note out there and see what happens. I forget who said it, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I just like, oh, let's give it a shot, and see what happens.
Well, I don't want to keep harping on the highlight stuff because
No,
I was a little surprised to find out that you still weren't making stuff because you're always.
Yeah.
There's so much of your stuff that cycles around, and I know you post things. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I always marvel at, especially I think on the preview thumbnail we did for this episode, I put one of your images of a baseball stadium. I think it was Fenway.
Oh yeah.
And there has to be a cajillion faces.
Yeah.
In that, and there's no half stepping in there. There's no like.
Thanks.
There's no like circle with a happy face. Like
Right.
there's full humans sitting in every one of those chairs.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So like I kind of wonder, is there a part of your process that's deliberate in that way? Like I don't want to phone it in, especially when you're doing these huge crowd scenes. Or like kind of what's your process between doing like
I just I love drawing and I love looking at art and I love seeing all those little details that people do. I like discovering things. So I feel like if I fudge things, it doesn't make it quite as fun, especially for kids. Kids are going to look at it. And I have to remember that, I think it was Schultz said that, don't forget as a cartoonist that you're making funny pictures. You're making pictures for people to laugh and to kind of discover, you can't get away from that. And I don't know, I just enjoy, and I like a diverse world too. So I like adding, all these different races and cultures and, all these different things. And then there's little private jokes, like in this one, I think there's like a lot of my family's in there because they're baseball nuts. And then, there's just little jokes thrown throughout. But I don't know, I just like doing it. And I like learning too. I do a ton of research.
Yeah.
I love learning about how things work, like those cameras down there, the guys on the platform. Like I've never drawn one of those before. So I was like, what does it actually look like? So I did like research and I just love discovering all those things.
Now for somebody who is not a cartoonist, I'm sure people go, so do you hide like boobs in there or anything like that? But like we all know that doing client work is like you can't be like, I don't know, like salty and do things like that because you'll just get in trouble.
No, yeah, especially, and highlights train me well. Like I never did that, but they have very strict rules, especially after you guys probably know about Bill Morrison's accidental penis he put on the My Little Mermaid VHS cover. he did that accidentally. I believe him. You know, I don't think he did that on purpose. It's so obvious. You know, it's way too obvious. But after that, Highlights just got so many letters and so many people now looking for that stuff.
Right. There's like they're looking for.
We had to be very careful. You know, we weren't allowed to hide objects near the crotch of any animal or any person, just because it could be taken that way.
Right.
Oh, that's not. That's not a gopher hole. Wait a minute.
Right. Wow. Do not put the eggplant near the crotch of the animal. But
well, you know, people do, and I can even say from the comic strips, especially when I started, people read stuff into your art. Yeah. And I even knew that from fine art, my painting. If you make anything ambiguous, people then bring their own bugaboos to it, right? They bring their own baggage, and whatever their baggage is, they will project that onto your painting. You know,
right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, sometimes a funny picture is just a funny picture. Like, I'm not making a commentary on anything. It's just funny. You know, it's just fun. But yeah.
So I'm gonna do one more thing, and then we'll talk about your new project.
Okay.
All right. So distract Chuck a little bit more, and I'll talk the next thing.
Well, I wanted to say with the hidden pictures, the most serious fart, which is this book here. Thank you. When it came time to do this,
here, I'll give you the screen. Hold it up again, Chuck.
Yep. Yeah, there it is. Written by Mike Bender. And there's over 300 hidden butts in this. So when it came time to do this, like, I was like, you know, I didn't intend on it, but here, I'll show you guys the page. When I worked on this page, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like a butt right there. So I just started hiding butts, because kids think butts are hilarious. But again, that's something Highlights would never let me do in a million years.
Yeah.
Really? No butts? No.
So I hid butts, and then I sent it to the author, and I didn't say a word. I just kind of let him look at the illustrations. He's like, yeah, these are great. And then I waited, and I was like, did you see the butts? And he's like, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. So it's like, we got to do this throughout the whole book. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. And, you know, and do you, with your kind of different mediums projects, like kind of like working on magazine variety stuff and then doing picture books and other types of books, do you find any challenges in kind of like maybe even collaborating with somebody, which is a little different than working on, you know, like
because these 3 books that I did, the most serious fart, the bravest booger, and then the new one, the bored panda, it's the same author, so we kind of talk about what he kind of is envisioning for each page. And so I use that as kind of a guideline, because sometimes I just, you know, I have a different take on it, something he didn't think of. So, you know, I just do tons of thumbnails, and then I, you know, look at what I think is going to be best. And sometimes I'll say, well, no, that's not going to work, because further down the line, this is going to happen. Right. So I appreciate his input, you know. Yeah.
Honestly, I was thinking,
sorry, I'm just seeing that comment.
I was saying before we went live that I love that art style for those books, specifically because the idea is so ridiculous, but the execution is so well done. It is so.
Oh, thank you.
To elevate that material is such makes it that much funnier. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think Jamar wants to talk about this later, but I just come off the Monopoly board book, which was all 100% digital, full color. And when the author approached me about doing the fart book, I was like, I want to like just hand paint something, you know? So I was like, I want to do the fart hand painted just with some messy, you know, watercolor. And then I scanned those in at a real high resolution. And I want to do real simple backgrounds, you know, real light. And we were thinking of like, do you remember the little people, not the little people, but the like Mr. Bump on his head, Mrs. Sunshine.
Yeah,
we wanted to keep we wanted to keep like a lot of white space, real simple, which we thought would be really fun, you know, and eye catching. And so it just kind of all came together and really worked. And so I did that with the next book too, which was the bravest booger, which is the follow up. Snot hair.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, there she is.
Oh,
It's
wow.
funny because you can do this stuff now, but I think before Ren and Stimpy, you could not have done boogers.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I think Everybody Poops came out, you know.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed some things. But yeah, farts sell. Boogers, we're finding out, don't sell quite as well, but you know, kids are still having fun with it. But yeah, there's hidden noses through this book.
I'm sure the fart book sells itself almost, right?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Like, I feel bad when I'm at comic conventions selling it. Like, I see, you know, the other cartoonists or other artists like struggling to get people just to look at their work, and people just see, you know, the title of this book, and they're like, "Serious fart," and they just come right over. It's like, really?
What's it about? What's the elevator pitch?
It's about a fart who takes himself way too seriously, and he wants to change not only the name of the fart, but he wants to change the scent. He wants to make it a better smell. He wants people to think better of the fart like they do of like sneezes or coughing, like take it more seriously. And so the other farts, you know, all get together. There's a town hall meeting with the board of old farts. Here they are.
The old fart.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So they have a town meeting, and they, you know, he goes through his whole shtick, you know, trying to convince them to make it, you know, different. And then yeah, he wants them to name it the Farfloofity.
So good.
And then, you know, they convince him he's wrong, and he winds up kind of realizing that he has to embrace his silly side, you know. Yeah.
Rick Garcia says, farts are like, put some respect on my name.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, his name is Siegfried, the character.
JRD says a silent but deadly takeover.
Yes, I wanted to add one dressed as a ninja in the background, but it just didn't work because I thought it'd be funny to have the silent but deadly fart, you know, that's like hidden in the background.
Hey.
I just could never work it in. But maybe
Do you have the fart that goes down your pant leg, the spider or whatever they call it?
Hey, Chuck.
The barking spider. That was it. Yeah, the barking spider.
Yes, barking spider, yeah.
Bear Edwards says, was a scratch and sniff version of it discussed?
We actually, yes. There was one of the first things I discussed, and it was too expensive. But the other thing was, you guys probably, I don't know if you were around when He-Man action figures were out, but I always remember this. There was an action figure. I never had it. It was called Stinkor, and it was basically a He-Man that smelled bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents, after about 2 weeks, threw it in the trash because it smelled so bad. And I was like, I don't want to curse our book with that. I don't want parents to be like, this book stinks. Like, literally, a great book, but it literally smells. It's going in the trash.
Wow.
So yeah, we often joke about that, like, you know, that it should be a scratch and sniff. And I often joke with people that if they buy a copy of The Bravest Booger, I'll not only sign it for you, I'll sneeze in it before I send it.
We'll smear a wet one right in there.
Right.
Oh man. So, well, I'm glad you talked about the books, Chuck, because I hate to put that on at the very end.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
So can you grab that Monopoly box real quick?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So this is.
So talk about this.
Yeah. So this is a COSTCO Monopoly. About 2 years ago, a woman actually saw my work in highlights. Her dad, she works for a company that owns like a company that makes like custom Monopoly boards. So like, say you have a Philadelphia Eagles Monopoly board or like a Star Wars, they do kind of like that stuff, but they wanted to make a Costco board for Monopoly. So they contacted me, and they're actually not too far from me in Manchester by the Sea. But so yeah, I met with them, and you know, they told me what they wanted, and we started making it. And let me show you guys the board. It took over a year.
This is crazy. What? All right, go ahead. Hit them with it.
Yeah, So I go to Costco a lot. I did a lot of research, and this was the center board. Wow, you guys can see that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
A lot of little details, and there's specific city. Like each space is a different city in a different part of the world.
mm-hmm.
Like you got London, so I had to do research on all these different spaces, and then there's at different Costco's throughout the world, there's different types of food, so we had to kind of incorporate that.
That's wild.
And then just making the center work was a challenge.
I mean, the perspective is crazy, but also you did all of the community cards. Like you did everything.
Yeah, literally everything. Yeah, and the whole board.
Well, I'll put some of your things. I'll put some of your images on the screen, and we can talk.
Yeah.
How did the idea of putting that interior of the store on a diagonal like that? It's really fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure why we did that. Oh, you know what? It's probably because when they sent me the Costco, that's when you get your Monopoly board, the Monopoly's usually diagonal in the middle. So I just kind of kept that. And it does make it a lot more dynamic.
Yeah.
So everything points to go. But yeah, so I just, I had to keep those logos in place, obviously, and kind of work around them. But so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was a haul. And then I had a former student of mine, Rick Orange, who's a great cartoonist. You guys should look up his work. He helped me with all the little packages. Like I would draw the outlines, and he would do a lot of the little tiny illustrations. He did about 50% of them, and so he would kind of copy and paste and add all these labels. Thank you. So yeah, that was quite a job. It was really fun. We're hoping that because Costco does this thing where they have like a puzzle, they have different gifts that come out each year. We thought this was going to come out each year, but it only came out the 1 year. But we're hoping maybe in a little while they'll want us to kind of update it, and send out a newer version.
So you had to work pretty large, right? You had to work on each individual thing large to get the detail you wanted?
Yeah, it was pretty large. I can't remember the exact size right now, but everything was done at 600 DPI, so pretty high res.
Wow.
Because it was being printed. And then they, that way they could use it larger if they needed to. But yeah, it was a lot of just coordination, and I think they thought I was going to be done in about 3 months. And in my head, I was like, I think it's going to take a lot longer than that. Because I contacted some cartoonists that I know that work on board games, and they said, with that, give yourself at least a year. Wow. So I said, this is going to take a while, So
is this like a tip-in, Chuck? What is this right here?
Yeah, there was a little piece of paper that kind of came with it. I must have taken it out. But this kind of showed you why the spaces are what they are. It kind of gives you a little detail as to why they look the way they look, because we couldn't fit that on the board. So that kind of describes it, and it shows you where those locations are on the map. So
there's and I remember you were sharing some of this on your Facebook. You had some some rejected images and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of, especially the Asian countries, they always wanted to see final art before, like they didn't reject it in the sketch stage. Like it went to final, and they were like, yeah. So there was like tons of, especially with South Korea and China, there were a lot of, things lost in translation, and then just a lot of things we were just trying to please them and trying to figure out what they wanted. But we finally, figured it out. But yeah, it took a lot. So it was a lot of patience on my part. Like there's one of the spaces was actually Burbank, California, where I had, because the rotisserie chickens are so big. At Costco, I had like this chicken lying and on like the Hollywood Walk of Fame, with like it said rotisserie chicken on the star, and like there's just people taking photos of the chicken and stuff. And then the client like rejected it, and like that was the one time I was like, I need to go drink whiskey and walk in the woods for a little while. This is like one of the best things I've ever done, and you're like, nah, you know what I mean? But that's part of being a cartoonist. You can't, especially with commercial stuff, highlight stuff. It's like I'm just providing a service. I'm not Vincent Van Gogh. I'm not Renoir. You know what I mean? I'm just providing a service, and I have to work with them. And it just, it'll,
Chuck,
Anyway.
This work is so good. George Gant is
Oh, thanks,
violent.
George.
George
Thank
is
you.
on the floor.
And
Thank
it
you,
might
George.
be that the person that
I love your work.
It might be that the person that you're dealing with just has no sense of humor.
Yeah, well, that's what's funny about this project is there was a lot of funny stuff in it when I made it for the company, not Costco. And then when Costco got involved, they removed like all the humor. And there were animals. We had a lot of animals incorporated because the animals are in the different spaces. So we had them on the Costco floor, not doing anything inappropriate, just kind of being kind of anthropomorphic type of animals. And they removed it, and then we got a note that were like, well, it's not funny anymore. And we're like, well, yeah, you removed all the humor. So we slowly started introducing stuff, and
you brought in the Costco Karens from
yes, well, that's and then that's the other aspect too is once it got passed through all the Costco people, because each Costco from those different parts of the country or different parts of the world had to approve their space. Then it went to like the CEOs and the CEOs' significant others, and that's when some problems started because they're like, I want my husband in there. And I'm like, I started getting notes on like, it doesn't look like him. And I had to remind them, like, you're looking at it on a screen and it's this big. When it's printed, it's going to be, no one's going to notice. You know what I mean? So I had to just kind of coach them, like, you're not going to notice that,
How do you quote a project like that that's going to have infinite number of revisions?
That's a good question, Steve.
I
kind of looked at
that should
be. Yeah, they gave me kind of a list of everything they were thinking was going to take place, that what I was going to have to do. And then I kind of worked in my head like, okay, this many things are going to probably change, we'll probably take it. So I just kind of looked at, how much I would charge per illustration. And then but yeah, at a certain point, I was like, look, I can't be making these revisions all the time. Like because I needed the game company to kind of start pushing back.
Right.
To protect me, to protect the designers too, because the designers are going crazy with it all too. So you have to kind of sometimes push back a little bit politely, just say, look, I'm one person.
So what? And with that, because I don't know if you ever counted, because we don't really think in those parameters. Like when somebody says, how many panels did you draw in this comic book? We don't keep score that way. Yeah. But like, did you have an idea how many images you think you drew for this?
You know what? No, I never really, I should tally that. But I mean, I pretty much worked on it nonstop for about a year and 4 months.
Wow. I
did other little jobs. I had like a few hidden pictures that I did for a couple people. But that was really it. That's all I did for like that whole time. So it was a lot. I mean, it's gigabytes of information,
And hopefully you got paid in stages, right? You got paid as
Yeah. And then when, they realized, oh, we need them to do this, we would kind of add to the list, and I get paid for that. So
stack it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because people forget about that too. When you have a really long deadline, right? You've got to buy groceries.
Exactly. Yeah. Children's books are a little bit better than that. They always give you money to start, and then they'll give you money to. They'll give you money, when you finish the job. But yes, it's funny when I go grocery shopping, I'll answer that question that was on the screen. Because I went there first, did some research, took some pictures, like I got permission. And then I think when I was about 9 months into the project, I felt like I had PTSD when I was walking across. I'd see the logo and be like, oh, Jesus. Those aren't shelves. No one needs that much toilet paper.
That's fantastic.
And I added some people from my local Costco, and I think when it came out, I showed them, and they were like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" But they,
it's what, like there's, and that's our lives. We do gig work to a degree, but I think
Yeah.
the project was so cool and so different.
thanks.
It's so like
Yeah.
I don't know, micro and macro at the same time. I'm really astonished by the amount of detail you put into that.
Thank
Like
you.
just we kind of talk about like just being a professional, right? And there's
Yeah.
nothing in that package that looks like you were just like, I'm just gonna draw this.
Yeah. That's I mean, yes,
You
it
know?
has to be very consistent, and yeah, everything kind of has to look married, like that it's
Yeah.
all part of the same universe and things.
I was also thinking that if you were doing like the Richard Scarry thing where you were putting the different animals in, but then culturally animals are very different, right? Like
Right.
for some cultures, this is not a good animal. Other cultures,
Yeah.
it's a
That's
great
true. That's true. Yeah.
That's
true.
Yeah,
Mr. Worm, whatever that character was, the worm.
Lily.
He's bad in every culture, right?
Lloyd the Worm. He's a tech bro. He's a tech bro now.
Yeah. But I was just thinking about that because that's an international. It was just the United States. You could do humor that we would know, but there's humor that's not going to translate to Burmese or Chinese or whatever.
Right. Yeah, especially with the Asian countries, there were a lot of sensitivities we had to be aware of, and some of them, like, I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this. Through that process, I learned, especially South Korea and China, they don't want to be drawn like they look Asian. They don't want, and not that I do, I worked for highlights for years, so I know how to draw an Asian person without being racist, or stereotypical, but they don't want any hint of like a slanted eye, anything like that. So you had to be very careful. And I got to the point where I just kind of drew white people, but with their skin tones and different kind of hair colors, and they were better with that. But before that, I felt like they were almost getting insulted by me just drawing what I think an Asian person looks like. So just
what would they say? What would they say?
I think one of the places threatened that they were going to have someone draw their panel because he can't figure out how to draw us, and I was like, okay. So I just okay.
I mean, as a cartoonist, that's got to sting, right?
You're it was a little bit. Yeah.
Wait a second, let me I'll figure it out. Just give me a minute. Before we go to the next thing, our buddy Rich Green, what up, Rich? Rich says, have you been approached by Parker Brothers or any other big board game company?
No, and going back to what we were talking about before, like I felt like we had a great relationship working on this. I thought the client told me that I possibly was going to work on Hasbro's 100th anniversary Monopoly game following this one, which would have been like amazing because I love toys, Yeah. And they just never called me again. It's like, I don't, maybe it took too long. I don't know. But it's like, and I'm still friendly with them. Like I'm friends with them on Facebook, the people individually. But again, it's just one of those things that happens in cartoon. You're not sure what you did. That's like, even Hasbro said it's one of the best Monopoly boards that's ever come out because Hasbro owns it now. And so I thought, oh, well, cool, that this will lead to more work, and just nothing. So I have no idea if anybody has any advice.
It's the nature of the beast, and you're also not burning bridges. Like it's almost like, well, when you find my number, call me. Got to move on.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and who knows what it could be. I try not to be, implant my insecurity into it. But.
Well, here's another thing, Chuck, that I wanted to add in, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we talk in general terms a lot about the business of being a cartoonist and kind of how to handle yourself on the internet waters. And I know there are a lot of people that just like to go scorched earth on their social media about businesses they work with, or somebody looked at you cross, and now it's all like, I don't think you would have gotten as far as you have if you were taking that context with your clients on Twitter or whatever. Like there's some decorum, I think, that needs to be held up, even if it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah, there were things like with highlights, never liked me putting anything online that that wasn't already published, wasn't in print yet. You know what I mean? So you just kind of like respect their boundaries, and you just wait until it came out, it was published. And yeah, I personally, I do love highlights. You know, is there some things that I wish were different? Yeah, of course, but you know, that's my personal opinion. I just keep that to myself. You know, but yeah, I loved working there. It was great. You know.
All right, Chuck. Let's talk about your new project. Let's talk about the board.
The Board Panda. All right, so yeah, there's the Board Panda website, boardpanda.com. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. It's a great website to go to. They have like an art section where it's just people creating things. So the author thought it would be fun to do a children's book about the Board Panda. So I had to kind of stick to the model of their little. They have like a little mascot. That's the Board Panda, where he has this one gray eye. And then I kind of, you know, played with it, added my own kind of style to it. But so this children's book is about a board panda that his internet goes out and his power on his house. And his mom basically says, like, go out and see what your friends are doing, you know, in the woods. And so I love the outdoors. Excuse me. And so I incorporated a lot of that, you know, even growing up in Philadelphia, my dad took me on a lot of fish. It was like local fishing trips and stuff. So I just grew up loving being outdoors. So I incorporated a lot of that into the illustrations. And here I can show you guys. Yeah, I hand inked all of these. You know, I really took my time. You know, I did do some of the background stuff. I'll do that later in digital.
You're killing me, Chuck.
But you can see I work pretty big. That's one of them.
Fantastic.
Chuck? What are you inking with?
Right. I used to ink with microns, but I just started inking with these Tombow brush pens.
Those brush pens, yeah.
Yeah, they're really awesome. I usually use the firmer one. I can't remember what it's called.
You probably go through one of those every illustration, don't you?
No, well, that's what I love about them, because I tried brush pens in the past and they would just die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these just seem to last a really long time as long as you keep them nice. But yeah, here's one of the other ones. And I like that it's just a thicker line than the microns. You know, I was using a 0.5 and a 0.8, sometimes a 3. But so yeah, there's a lot of stuff like digitally. I planned on coloring those parts. It's great. Yeah, but it was just fun coming up with these characters too that kind of had the fit. You know, the model of the mascot. You know, that kind of looked like they fit in that little universe. It was a lot of fun.
And then you have to scan it in pieces and put it together.
Yeah, what's nice is this is what kind of changed everything for me, because those highlights, what's wrongs I used to do, some of them they're about 22 inches by about 18, I think. And so I scanned them in, and you kind of overlap the parts. And then with Adobe Bridge, you kind of select them all. And then you go to Photoshop. I can't remember. I think Tools, Photoshop, and then Photo Merge, and it just merges them.
Oh, it sews it all together.
It's like magic. Yeah, like you just kind of sit back. You know, I try not to do anything on the computer because it takes a lot of computing power, but all of a sudden it just kind of every once in a while you might have to tweak something, but it finds all those connections. But,
yeah, the chat's loving it, Chuck.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. So that book's coming out April 29th, so that'll be pretty cool.
It's fantastic. How do you now that you've been doing all of these kind of like traditional publishing books, are there parts of this that you have to market for yourself, or like do some book
I have to do a lot of
signings and stuff like that?
Yeah, social media stuff. I have a little local bookstore here in town that when The Bravest Booger came out, we did a book signing, so we're going to do a book signing for this. And then I'm actually going to do a couple book signings in the Philadelphia area, because I have so much friends and family down there. Probably one in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and then the other somewhere on the outskirts of Philadelphia, not in Center City, but just kind of on the outskirts, so it's easier for people to get to.
Yeah, let me know.
I will. Thanks.
Our buddy Henry wants to know when was that dropping again?
Oh, it's April 29th. So you guys can pre-order it on Amazon or any bookstore, Barnes and Noble. Should be available. But yes, Random House is really pushing this, which is nice. They're doing like a kind of a cardboard cutout of the panda, like it's at the top of their list to promote. And they're kind of tying it in with there's like a National Unplug Week, I think it's called. I think it's the first week of May. Pretty sure it's when it is. So it's like a lot of schools embrace it, to teach kids to kind of get off their devices and go do things. And that's, the author and me and you guys too, like we grew up when we were bored, we would draw. Or we'd go outside and play, and kids aren't doing that. They're constantly entertained. And so it's such a good thing when like the device, when like boredom is a really good thing, and people are just thinking it's not anymore because we constantly are entertaining ourselves.
It's
that's
okay
the kind of theme of it.
If you were bored and hoping, your mom would go outside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Don't come back until lunchtime.
Yeah. Yeah. And I firmly believe like I wouldn't be the cartoonist or learned how to draw like I did if I had constantly had, a device or a video game. Like even that stuff, I didn't have that much stuff. We had like an old Atari, then maybe a Nintendo for a little bit. But that was
wow. Yeah. I mean, you guys are younger than me, by about, you're like the same age as my baby brother. So,
okay.
I had an Atari, but I was already in my teenage years.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So when I think I didn't have it. My cousins had Pong. But Pong was not that exciting. You know what I mean? I mean, it was,
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
It was not, that made Tank Battle look with a tank. That was like, oh my god,
Yeah, Jamar and I were just talking about what did you bring up? The Pac-Man on Atari?
Oh yeah, the
Pac-Man. And
yeah.
my brother at one point was like, it sounds like when he eats one of the ghosts, it sounds like it says buckwheat. Buckwheat.
That's
so stuff, used to say that. Buckwheat.
This stuff lives rent free in my head.
You know what it is? It's the what do they say? It's the dopamine levels that kids have now, where you're always being. It's like it burns out your dopamine. You get addicted to having that dopamine.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So when you were bored, well, actually, you were never really bored because you could read comics or you could watch. I would like watch the little cartoon, and I would draw. Sometimes you would draw while you were, watching a cartoon or whatever. Yeah. But I think that we probably all artists share that that thing of being able to almost, like when you're in your drawing, you're kind of in a trance. You kind of go into your imagination, so you're not paying attention to everything else. You're paying attention to what's in your imagination. So
right. Even look at like when we drive, a lot of times my son's looking at his phone, and every once in a while I have to remind him, like, just lift your head up, look around. Like some of the things we're passing are beautiful. We live in the woods, like there's beautiful things. And then sometimes we'll pass something for 4 years, and you'll be like, hey, I never noticed that barn over there. And I'm like, you've been passing it for 4 years.
Yeah. Well,
you need to be observant. You need to start looking around.
And that ties into what you were talking about earlier with going out and sketching, because I told that to somebody, was it last week? It may have even been at the Moore thing. The see, observe, remember thing, saying that the famous cartoonist had, which is really true, right? That's like probably maybe the best slogan for an artist is the see, observe, remember, because everybody sees, but we really are paying attention to what we're looking at. And then when you draw, you're like remembering it again. It's like double etching.
Yep.
So
No, I agree with that. I noticed that with my son because he loves to draw. That when he was little, that he was starting to see things that my wife, who is very smart but she's in pharmaceutical science, her brain just works differently. She's very left brain, and I could see that he was observing things that I was seeing, and then my wife would say, "What are you guys talking about?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh no, he might be an artist," but he thankfully he got my wife's smarts, but still I see that where he's starting to observe a little bit more. But yeah, that's so important, just seeing things and really taking the time to really look, as opposed to just kind of glancing, and taking it in too fast.
One thing that I love about you, Chuck, and I'm giving Chuck his flowers tonight, and it's understated, right? It's like the work you do, and to do the work that you do with the level of detail you do, is that you have to be observational, like obsessed,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You have to be kind of like obsessed with the details. Even in your sketchbook drawings, it's like, oh, I'm picking these things out of these people, like immediately, and then registering them to paper. And I think that's you're amazing at it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to check on you, Chuck. How you doing? You got time for the question?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, questions would be good. Thank you.
All right, let's do it. You know what it is. It's the lightning round. Question Palooza time. This is when Stone Cold Steve Conley asks you a battery of questions, and you're going to give him
as he's tinkling.
And Chuck, try to give pretty brief answers.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Steve.
This hard-hitting first question we're going to have is just you'll bring the best guests. We're spoiled by you. Chuck is awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Rick, without the K.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's lightning round. We're carting through. Richard Green on YouTube asks, will you be at ALA?
What is ALA?
I guess you're not going to be there if you don't.
The state of Alabama.
It's dangerous there now.
It's American Library Association.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. But I think Random House will have the Board Panda, and they'll be kind of pushing that. But I wish I could go because it's not that far, right? It's usually in Atlantic City.
It's in Philly this year.
Is it Philly? Okay. Yeah, I would love to have gone. I don't know.
Next time.
Rich, I think Rich's wife works for the ALA, so if she can get me in there, I would be happy to be there.
All right.
Oh, we got a question from YouTube from Henry Hemman. Is there a way to read those comics? Are we referring to the comics that you did way back
in the newspaper?
Yeah. A soap opera.
No, I have some of them on my old blog, which if you look up Chuck Dillon and then just put a space and then put blog 30 by 30, like 30x30, you might be able to find some there. Some of them I don't want people to see. So I'm so embarrassed by them. But I think I have like my favorite ones up there. Yeah, I never collected them or anything. So sorry about that.
D Parson on Facebook. Hello, D. Hello, my fellow pencil pushers. Mr.
Hello, D.
So good to see you again. Love seeing how things are skyrocketing for you.
Thanks.
Super
Thank
deep
you.
Parsons. Read Rosebuds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Follow-up. How do you feel about last year's Reuben nomination?
Oh, that was pretty crazy. I won 2 Reubens during the NCS. Yes.
Wow.
And that I was shocked by it because I thought maybe I might win for the Monopoly board. I just didn't think I would win a second one. It was just a little overwhelming. But Jamar could speak for this too. Like when you're from Philadelphia, not much surprises you. The craziness that you're surrounded by. So, but it was, I've always wanted to be in the National Cartoon Society ever since I found out about it. And since I never got that comic strip syndicated, I thought there goes my chance. But now that the NCS kind of opened it up to other people, it was amazing, that I was able to get a Reuben. I mean, it's awesome. To me, that's like getting an Oscar,
Yeah.
Everything's downhill now.
So what?
Wait a minute, Jamar. Wait, I got to pitch this to you. You know how they have the EGOT?
Yeah.
what is the cartoonist equivalent of the EGOT? We gotta figure that out.
Health
Is it
insurance.
the Eisner? All right, you win.
Retirement.
What? What's that?
No, I guess it would be I made the Ringo, like the Eisner.
Yeah, Ringo, the Eisner,
the Ringo, the Eisner, the Reuben, the
Harveys,
the Harveys.
the
Harveys.
Hearn.
What about
There's
the
so
ink?
many, I guess.
What about the ink pot? Does the ink pot count?
Inkers.
And then the Pulitzer Prize, right? The Pulitzer
Yes.
Prize. There isn't
Yeah.
that
Wow.
cartooning, yeah. So
I think health insurance would kind of.
Trump,
But-
all of that.
Yeah, but Chuck, what were the 2 division awards that you won? Like,
I won for variety entertainment for my hidden picture work, which is really nice. And then the other one was for advertising illustration. So that was for the Monopoly board. Yeah, which was awesome.
the fairy. I think that's what we're getting at. The fur. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the question, D. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, D.
And we got Buck Jones on YouTube. Chuck, you've won numerous awards for your work, deservedly so. Has winning those awards helped you towards getting more work?
What's funny is when I won these, I had to take 6 months off because my arms are so damaged.
From holding them.
Yeah. No,
those are solid lead. Those are lead.
I was.
Pocket.
Should get like chains like Flava Flav.
Yeah.
No, my hands were so badly damaged that for 2 months I did physical therapy, and the physical therapist was like, "You need surgery."
Wow.
And I was like, "What about cortisone shots?" She's like, "Because any physical therapy we're doing is making it worse because your hands are so overused." So December hit, so I just kind of took a break. I think I did one little job, and so I haven't worked really since the end of August, except for this. I'm doing an illustration right now. You guys know Steve Levine from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He was like their character designer, or not character designer, but he did a lot of like the promotional art for the 80s cartoon show. And he was their letterer and color. So I'm doing like a hidden picture of the Ninja Turtles, and he's coloring that. And that's like the first piece I've done in months. Like this, so he's going to sell it at conventions and stuff.
How's it going? How's your hand?
It's going good. Yeah, I drew all like for the past 3 weeks. I've been drawing about 5 hours a day. Just trying to take it easy.
Right.
Trying to do.
You hear what he said? 5 hours a day, taking it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's let that hang in the air for a second.
Yes. As opposed to my normal, 10 to 12 hours.
Right.
So when you draw, do you take breaks? Do you wrap your hand? What are you doing?
Yeah, I do these, exercises where I stretch a lot. And that's just a matter of, I recommend everyone get a dog, because a dog every 3 hours is like, hey, we need to go outside, go for a walk,
That's true. Yeah.
So I just get up and sometimes I'll just get up and stretch, just to be able to stand up, stretch my legs, stretch my back. So yeah, just, do what you can. Take a lot of ibuprofen.
And the last question we have is JRD, a very important question. Don't forget to ask Chuck about his Tauntaun corpse.
Oh yes,
I need details.
Yes. So I wish I thought to send you these videos or these pictures, Jamar. But if you guys go on my Facebook page, there's a video on my Instagram too. I've always wanted to do one of those cardboard sled kind of contests. And there was one like less than an hour from my house. And I just been wanting to build something for a while and just not, do something that required drawing. So I had this funny idea. I was drunk one night with my friend Jay, and I was like, hey, it'd be really funny. It'd be really funny if I dressed like Luke Skywalker and you dressed like Han Solo. And we went down inside the belly of a dead Tauntaun out of cardboard. And he was like, okay, get started. Okay. because he helped me a little bit toward the end, but like pretty much like we were collecting cardboard, and I did some sketches, in my sketchbook, and then I it only took a week, which it was a lot. I maybe worked 12 hours on it each day.
Wow.
So we put it all together, did all these, wrapped it in duct tape and everything, and I also had to think about when I build it, like, how we got to haul it up there. So I had to do it kind of apart. So when we got up there, we kind of had to, put it back together. But yeah, so we won first place, which was bananas. And yeah, I was showing you guys earlier. They didn't give me a trophy. They gave me a gift certificate. But so I bought myself a trophy, and it is this.
Ah! You were Industrial Light and Recycle. Industrial Light and Recycle.
Yes. See, I
Brady.
still have that. I still have the head of it. I'm gonna mount it. My wife said it's okay for me to mount the head in the garage. I'm gonna make it like it's in Jabba's palace, sitting there.
Chuck, you must go to the COSTCO system. Ben, is that you?
Yeah, that's what I said. I said to my wife Daisy, I said, if we crash and this thing falls apart, the only thing I'm saying is, Ben, Dagobah system. Ben.
So
yeah,
year?
I was dressed like this.
That's so funny.
And my friend
So next
Jay
year
was
it's the
dressed like
Sarlacc. You're gonna enter the Sarlacc pit competition.
Actually, yeah, I think next year I might either do a snow speeder, which I think would be fun, or the land speeder, Luke's land speeder. I think
That's
would be really
so
fun
funny.
because I'm hooked. Like I told him we're gonna like do this next year. We're doing the circuit because there's a whole bunch of them in this area. There's all these, slutty mountains.
Chuck, I have a family question, and this question is more like, because I think cartoonists are kind of certifiably insane in a way. That's great.
Yes.
Good job.
That's why everyone that came up to us, anybody over 40 knew what the Tauntaun was. And people were like, oh, I thought it smelled bad on the outside. It smelled like wet cardboard and duct tape. Very good.
Is there kind of like, I don't know, a limit or like a boundary push with your family? Like you're going to go in the garage and do something and come out with something.
Well, what's funny is it was still really cold when I built this up here in New England. So I had to build it like in the living room and kitchen. So my wife was very tolerant because our living room and kitchen looked like a recycling plant. Like there was just, especially when I was cutting everything, I was covered in paper cuts by the end of it, but there were just scraps of cardboard all over the place. Like it was hilarious.
I just wonder how people live with us. It's if you think about it, that's how your mind is just working all the time.
I think my wife used to kind of fight about it, fight me on it, but she's, not real harshly, but just kind of roll her eyes. But now she has kind of embraced it and like, okay, just clean it up, So it's nice. After 17 years of marriage or 18
Just
years
to let it wash over you.
Yeah.
Like you
But
walking.
the kids have to think it's cool.
What's that?
The kids have to think it's cool.
Yes.
You're like Richard Dreyfuss in
right.
Potatoes.
Oh, there's Dad again. Mashed potatoes. Sculpting his tauntaun out of mashed potatoes.
Yes.
Well, Chuck, before we run out of time, I wanted to just maybe talk about your setup because it was great seeing some of your originals and also knowing that you do work digitally. So kind of like what's your mix, your ratio these days of drawing on paper or doing things digitally? Like how's that working?
For the hidden picture work and like my black and white work, I still love just drawing stuff by hand. I still try to do sketches by hand as much as I can. If I have my busy pieces, they're, I'm getting a little bit more digital just because it's a little bit easier. But I still like inking by hand, scanning, and then I do Photoshop for coloring, and corrections. So
What do you scan with?
I just have like an old Epson, like V600. I think it's over 20 years old now. maybe less. But yeah, it still works. You know, I have to have like secondary apps to make it run. But
shout out to ViewScan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think. Can you even buy just a scanner anymore? I think they're all in ones now.
I don't know. No.
Yeah.
I think you can, but they're like very expensive.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah, you're not gonna like the view scan is like you can get one. I mean, you can get like one of those brothers or all in one. You know, like $300-400. But if you buy like a good flatbed, I think they're over $1,000.
Yeah.
That was my
what I'll do is I'll do the corrections on Photoshop and then I'll print it out in pieces and kind of tape it together. And then I put my, I have a big light board back here. I put the sketch down and put the paper right over top and just start inking right away.
Chuck, I'm surprised that you never said, you know what, I just need to draw smaller. Like just, like that part of like piecing everything together would just make me rage quit.
Yeah.
I would just be like, I'm just going to draw.
It's pretty easy once you figure it out. But I draw bigger because then I can add more details. It's easier on my hand. It's easier on my eyes, especially. Yeah, because I don't know if you guys have ever seen Chris Ware draw. Like he draws like so small. Like can't be good, man. Can't be good.
Dude, is there and not to get too much into your business of how your studio works, do you have anybody that like buys your originals? Is there somebody who really likes those that highlights in October?
No, I need to start selling them because I have, after years and years. I don't know if you guys could see that flat file. It's pretty full right there. But there's just stuff that I just don't know what to do with. But yeah, might start putting it up on my website. So yeah, I don't have anyone specifically. I will trade. A lot of times I'll trade pieces with people, which is really nice. Actually, just Bucky Jones, he just posted earlier. I traded with him. He sent me some art, and I finally got around to last week sending him a nice piece. So
that's very cool. I hope he got it.
Yeah,
because that's be
it should be there soon. Yeah, that's I contacted.
Get anything? What's he talking about?
Right. It's drawing on a napkin.
Yeah. So now after your Board Panda project, because I guess it's coming out and then you got to do your kind of cycle, your press junket for that. What's next on your plate?
Well, the most serious fart book was on Ryan Reynolds has a show now called Bedtime Stories with Ryan. It's only on his network, but it's going to be on Nickelodeon soon. And he read The Most Serious Fart in season 1. He's going to read The Bravest Booger in season 2. And I could tell everybody, I guess, that they're making a book because in the show, he lives with these little critters that kind of live with him. They're like little puppets. So we're going to write a story about a dust bunny. Or Mike Bender, who's the writer, is going to write a story about this dust bunny, and then I'm going to illustrate that. So that's kind of the next big project. Other than that, I'm open. I really have nothing going on except maybe some hidden pictures. But as I said, the New Yorker cartoons, I've been slowly working on those to submit. So hopefully that works out because that pays a lot better than most things. So.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to start wrapping it up. Mike or Steve, got anything left for Chuck?
It's so great to meet you. I really love your work. It's
thanks, Steve.
So glad you're here.
Thank you. It was great.
Do you have any? You mentioned having assistants. So when you're working with assistants, are you working long distance? Are they coming over?
Yeah, it was all through email and Dropbox. I would send him the high res files and say I would kind of send one low res file saying I need you to work on this area. But it was just with the Monopoly board. I've only done that a handful of times where I had people help me color or ink. And I should say Rick Orange, he did ink a lot of the stuff too that I just did not. I was running out of time. We were trying to make it a little bit faster. So, yeah.
And now we bring it back to Monopoly board again. With such a kind of like wiggly project like that, like I know you have a year, right? And to a lot of civilians, that sounds like amazing. I can do, I can do it a year. That sounds amazing. But as it starts to, the walls start to close, and you're like, this isn't good.
Yeah.
How much of that are you kind of foreseeing, or do you kind of have like a red line in the middle of the calendar? It's like, if I don't get more done before 3 months from now, I need to call in the cavalry. Like, how do you keep a deadline?
I was kind of going at my own pace, which I thought was fast enough, and then they were kind of dropping hints like, "Can you work faster?" So I was, I remembered
on top of revisions, right?
Yes, yeah. So I remembered I had a cartooning student that I always liked his work, and I knew he was looking for work, and I knew he would be great doing it. And he wasn't a student anymore; he'd been out of school for a while. So I knew he was available, so I had him kind of try out, a couple things, and he did really well. So I was like, okay, you're in, So I paid him really well, and he did everything I asked him to do, so it couldn't be better. Yeah,
that's all you can ask for. Yeah, awesome.
And what are you reading these days? What am I reading? When you had your downtime, what were you?
I still read Usagi Yojimbo. I still think it's like the best comic on earth. I should mention, I don't know, when I was on last time, I didn't get to say, Stan Sakai let me color 2 of his covers like 2 years ago.
Well, hold on, Chuck. I think there's a folder. Let me see if I can.
Oh, is there? Okay. I forgot I said that to you.
Yeah.
Which is like a dream come true, because I used to write him when I was a teenager. Like, if you look at early issues of Usagi, some of my letters are in like the letters section, which is really nice. Oh, cool. Bucky got it. All right, good. Awesome. So that was really nice, because it was kind of a low point where I wasn't getting much work. So I asked Stan, because Tom Luth had retired, which was his colorist, if I could start coloring Usagi. And he said, well, with IDW at that time he was with, said that, they have their own color company. So they did the interior, but he let me do 2 covers, which was awesome.
This was great.
If you see his work, you can kind of see how much he influenced me, with line and things. But
and Chuck, you don't really lend yourself out to doing stuff like this. Like, this is special.
Yeah, but I've been willing to do it. I wouldn't want to do it all the time, but I love doing colors. Yeah, it's really nice. Hey, if I don't have to draw it, just color it. That's a lot of fun. That's like my favorite part, when I get to start coloring. Because I know it's almost over.
And so what are you reading? Who are you looking at? Like when you have downtime, then you're like, you have all the stuff that you got that you didn't read because you're busy.
I still read a lot of stuff on Go Comics. I still love comic strips, New Yorker cartoons, and I just got into. I don't know why it took me this long, but I found a book on all the old Star Wars storyboards. That is just fascinating to me, because of they really show early ones, like before George really nailed down what he wanted, and just how different they are. And I love doing storyboards. I did them for a few commercials. So that's just been fun. So I try to kind of feed my soul, look at other art, see what other people are doing. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting lost on the internet. But I follow a lot of children's book illustrators and comic artists, all different kinds of people. I have a friend, Mariana Balladucci. She's an Italian illustrator, good friend of mine, and her work just always blows me away. She incorporates like real things, like a teacup into her illustration, has little characters around it, so I just love seeing people being artistic, it doesn't. And then in regards to reading, like I'm always reading Tolkien. At some point, I just love Tolkien's books. Some of them are a pain to get through, but I slowly go through. You're a slog.
I love it.
But
I love the idea of sitting down and just like reading. Like, are you like a book or like a Kindle, or like just
I like reading a book. Yeah, every once in a while I'll use like an audio book to kind of fill in the gaps if I get too busy doing something. I still want to, maybe I get engaged a little bit more. But I like to actually sit and read. Yeah, but I wish I had more time to do it.
I love it. Chuck, I wish we had more time to talk. You see what I just did there?
I'll come back tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. We'll put you on the couch. I'll put a pillow and some blankets out. We'll just start up again in the morning. That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Chuck, you're a fantastic human being.
Oh, thanks, man. I feel the same way about you.
An unsung hero of mine and a hell of a cartoonist. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk about your project.
Of course. Yeah.
I'll leave you with this, and I told Chuck this at the Rubens several times. I think I might have been following you around and telling you that not last year, the year before that, you saved Christmas.
Oh, yes.
I gave a bunch of people in my family CHUCK DILLON stuff. There was Costco Monopolies under the tree. That fart book was a hit. They were howling. I'm not a big fart guy, but my family were like,
yeah.
I
remember you texting me and telling me how.
I was like, dude, they're eating it up, Chuck. This is great. Save Christmas. So, thank you again, and hopefully you'll save this Christmas. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're gonna say goodnight. Hang out with us, Chuck, while we do our outro. You've done this before, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Chuck he's a delight. So we'll have to have him back on after you've done a million more things, which will take we will be back here next Wednesday, 8 p.m. I have no idea what we're doing, but you'll be the first to know when we figure it out. And I may do coffee break tomorrow. I'm not sure. You'll find out as well. Guys, we're in the end game. I don't know if anyone told you that. I think we're at the end of the story. But before then, I would be remiss if we didn't go into that cold, dark night without washing our Kirby hands. Let's see some Kirby hands, Chuck. Put them up. There you go. Get some flat fingers. There you go.
Show your drawing lump if you got one.
Oh, show your crooked drawing finger.
Yeah.
This is
drawing lump.
my divot.
Oh, I love it.
Thanks, guys. This was really fun.
Good night.
Good night.